Hitting live. Howdy, folks. Good afternoon. Hey, Steph. How are you?
Hi guys. I'm good, I'm good. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. The days are still really have very little meaning at the moment. But for a change, I've
Yeah.
been lately having a day off midweek instead of weekend. But this weekend, I
Oh.
did actually have the Sunday off. So it kind of felt like a normal weekend.
Oh.
Terry, no beer today. This is ginger ale soda. It's 4 p.m. in New York, so a bit early for a beer.
Yeah, and hot water and lemon because I have a
Boom.
lot of work to do.
And that's
Mhm.
Steph's version of an energy drink is hot water and lemon. Hi,
I can't drink
Vaz and
energy
Manny.
drinks. I actually freak out. I can't. The only time I can drink energy drinks is like during my productions where I need the extra energy, and even then it's like, oh, I'm freaking out.
That was a mistake. So thank you to everyone who sent through some questions. We're going to jump into them in just a sec, get it all rolling. Reminder, I have teamed up with KH Camera for their buying event this coming week, the 17th and 18th, so that's Friday, Saturday. You can schedule an appointment. There will be a link in the description and in the chat. If you have any gear that you want to trade in on other gear or just get it sold and make some room in the cupboard and some cash in your pocket, they'll have it picked up from your door and then post you out a check. I did it myself a couple of weeks back and it was really simple. And there's no harm in trying. You can just sit down and have a chat with the buyers, see what they offer you, see if you come to a deal. Whoops, I just knocked over my footstool, and go from there. If you like it, go for it. Hi to everyone coming in. Alison, hi from Brazil. Stephen from Gold Coast. What time is it there? It must be pretty early in the Gold Coast. Must be like, oh, maybe like 2 in the morning or something like that, or 4 in the morning.
Oh,
So let's jump in and take a look at some questions. Um, it's a bit confusing looking at these. I kind of feel like sometimes they're meant to have context, but I'm kind of lost. Nikon 8, R5 and R6, what Sony and Nikon need to do? So I guess that he's asking, given that Canon have announced the R5 and R6, what Sony and Nikon need to do to respond. The reality is, whilst there may be little firmware tweaks, both of the companies will have their plans in place and will have had them in place for months. It's not that they're going to now, maybe if they had made a serious miscalculation, they may delay things, rejig things, and put it back out. But generally, the lead time to develop new products it's not weeks or months. That's why I find it unbelievable that Canon, God, too many brands in my head, that Canon was giving reviewers 2 weeks before it's meant to ship to the public cameras that are using beta firmware as if there's going to be a big change in that time. It's possible, but they would already be, they have to get from Japan to America, to warehouses, to retailers, and be available to sell in 2 weeks. It seems unlikely that they're going to be rolling out big firmware changes. What do they need to do? You know, it really comes down to what you want from your camera. For some people, if the Sony just had unlimited 4K recording, didn't overheat, and had an articulated screen, it would already be the perfect camera. Some people have zero interest in 8K, some are only interested in that. So it's going to depend what me or Steph or you is interested in terms of features to what they're going to compete with. I assume the A7 III from Sony will be coming soon, and that Nikon will be coming out with the dual card slot pro grade mirrorless sometime this year. But as it is, no one except for ambassadors has put out real tests. So no one has put out real tests of the R5 or R6, and we don't really know how it performs. On paper, they look fantastic though. The higher model especially. The lower one seems great, but the pricing still seems a bit high for me. Hi guys, hi. If you guys don't know, Art School Dropouts in the chat is Steph. That's her and her team's channel. So if you're not already, you can click through and follow. Osays says, are you doing budgetography again? We will be, and I have some upcoming videos that are vaguely in that vein. It's just at the moment, the amount of time we have to film is so limited. I'm basically getting, apart from the live shows, one video max a week out. So, you know, it'll be when I can, but I hope so. I do have some ideas in the works already. Michael Black, how do you find, this is a good one for you, Steph. How do you find ways to push and improve your craft so you don't get in a rut?
Oh, man. I mean, I feel like you're always like learning. There's always new things. I mean, technology is always progressing forward. I feel like you can never be like at a level where you're like, yeah, I'm good. I think that's the really great thing about being a creative is just that you're always trying to strive to do better and be better. And you're honestly your own worst critic, because I like some of my stuff, but then I'm just like, man, if only I did this, or if I actually moved this way, or I had done it differently. I think that's how I kind of keep myself constantly like motivated and wanting to do better. So, yeah.
So I think Michael, he was thinking specifically about photos. I made it more generally, so I thought that would be helpful for, you know, once you're doing anything for a job, there's the desire to stay creative, the desire to be doing new things, but there's also the desire to pay your mortgage. So that is a good motivator as well. The view through my Finder, who's next after Olympus? A lot of people are saying, oh, it's the end of Olympus, the camera company's gone. The investment company who bought Olympus didn't just buy it to then, you know, ball it up in the bin and throw it away. It's going to continue trading in the same way that Leica has been sold 2 or 3 times over the last couple of decades. I don't think that you can say the fact that Olympus has sold it off, that division off, means that that's the end of days. So in terms of who else is next, I have no idea. Now this one, I'm sorry, Chris, I think you're in the chat, but I don't understand the question. It says, okay, Steph, how many shoots have you done over years, a one and done shot? Any idea what that means, Steph?
I will just try to answer generally. I have done way too many shoots to count, and I'm assuming a one and done shot. I mean, there was never an instance where a photographer took a photo and was like, all right, cool, we're done. Like, I don't think that's ever going to happen. I think even the most experienced models, that like there's always something to fix, whether it's the lighting, the pose, the wardrobe, like, oh, the angle, like there's just too many variables to control to have a one and done shot.
If it's a one and done take, I just saw in the chat here, we do sometimes in video, well, quite often in video, sometimes we'll have a take and when I have something specific to say, oh, there's so many puppies out right now, it'll take a dozen takes because I see a puppy out the window or something. But there's just as many times where there's a long, fairly complicated scene and it just flows beautifully, and that is a one and done. And to your question about photos, whilst I agree with Steph, there have been times where I've had single shot or 2 or 3 shots, no adjustments and leave, and that's been the shot, because when I was shooting for public bodies, we were often, you know, shooting a nude on a bridge in a public place. So we would rehearse it closed, work out the poses and angles, and then check everything. It was the right time to shoot. They would strip. We would pose 1, click, click, pose 2, click, click, pose 3, click, click. Okay, put your robe on and let's leave. And that was it. So it does happen. And there's certainly times when, with Steph and with other models or subjects, I have taken the shot and then made adjustments, taken the shot, gone through 5 different options, And it was the first shot that I took that I actually preferred. But, you know, to say it's one and done is probably too ambitious.
Yeah.
Jack something is saying, what should be considered when selecting a flash? Now, thanks for asking, Jack. If you can search my channel, or if Yobo or someone who's watching can check my channel, I've done a flash buying guide in the past. I've also done a tripod one and a light stand one and a this one and a that one, where I try to not get bogged down in brand and just look at the kind of features you want depending on the kind of work you're doing. And it's pretty much timeless. You know, the offerings on the market have changed, but the variables you need to think about are the same. So check that one out and that'll go into nice detail for you. Something we get asked, I think every 2 weeks, Steph, and I know the answer, but I'll still put it to you. Holiday Lodita asks, do you have weapons training?
I do not. I don't know any weapons whatsoever. I mean, my hands and my feet, but that's pretty much it. Yeah, these guns. Oh man, I haven't lifted in a while or done anything. These guns are very, very
just
low ammo.
I thought you were going to pull a muscle by making that noise.
God. So out of shape. It's so bad.
Mo Visual Photos. Best possible settings for harsh sunlight outdoor shoot. Now, I don't want to be dismissive of the question, but I can't tell you exact settings because harsh sunlight, it could still vary immensely in the actual amount of light that you have, and more importantly, it's going to depend what results you want. So the Natural Light Masterclass that Steph and I put together with a team's help, but you know, essentially Steph and I, which is available now, we go through that kind of thing. So it's partly to do with, you look at your settings for the creative options that you have for depth of field and movement and overall exposure. But if you're shooting in harsh sunlight, the more powerful thing you have control of is where you put your model. If you diffuse the light, do you bounce any light, your shooting angle, all of those things you can have, you can turn it into a flattering, softer light. Or if you're looking for hard light, you can totally, we have a whole section on embracing the hard light and using that as your aesthetic. So you need to kind of take a step back and say, so this is the light that I have, this is the result I want, and then look at what your options are to go from A to B. It's not just you should use f8 at 1/200th of a second or something like that. Kevin asks, what's up? How are things? Steph?
Oh, that's nice. Pretty good. Just doing a lot of work. I was just talking to Joey yesterday, and we were thinking of bringing back a old show that we used to do, like, oh my god, I think it was like 2 or 3 years back, called Ask the Dropouts. So it's basically like this. It's just a live stream, and we get to just answer questions from fans. Usually it's very martial arts related. A lot of those questions over there is a lot of, hey, how long have you been training and what martial arts do you know? Every week. But it's cool. We're thinking about just doing it once a month.
Yep, that's the way it goes. But I guess it can get a little draining. But then, you know, the angle I'm trying to take on it is, if I'm doing an Ask Matt show like this, or an Ask Steph show, then you would expect people who haven't heard all the answers before are the ones who are going to be coming. Exactly. And if that's the popular question, then you're going to have to answer it a lot of times. I did see a question here. Where was that? There was a couple about any Z8 news. I have no idea. I don't follow rumors, and I don't have any inside info with any of the companies. I'm sorry. There were some, I definitely saw a more detailed question there. Oh, I can't see it now, sorry. Where by going...
Do you know what it was about?
I remember thinking, oh, I'll answer that. Then I lost it.
So sorry, guys.
See, we're doing this earlier in the day to make it convenient for people who are, you know, in Europe and it's midnight or after. But it means that one is at work and Yobo is doing her best to keep up with the comments for me. William, are you going to review the Leica M10R? Has that been announced? I saw a rumor on Leica Rumors on Instagram that it was coming. I will try to review it if and when it is available. Someone just wants to learn to take good pictures. That's a good motivation.
That's what
Take
we're here
more
for, yeah.
and continue to review
Keep
them,
practicing.
shoot with intention, and you'll get there. Hey, Tyson. Jackie Chan. Okay, let's go back to the questions I already have submitted. If you have more questions, oh, that was it. Maybe they've deleted it now because there's a question here that reminded me. Someone said, nice cover, what's the background? And I think he means the thumbnail for this video. That was actually laying on a frozen lake. So that's not faked or anything. I was laying on 6 feet of frozen ice, and all of the different colored lines through it are cracks in the ice, but it's strong enough to drive 4-wheel drives across. So we just laid on it. Someone kind of straddled, put their legs either side of me and shot straight down over my head, thanks to, I can't remember if it was Keith or Adam or one of my guests in Mongolia took that shot for me. And then the thumbnail I shared for this, Steph, was, that I shared on Instagram asking for questions, was the shot from the Natural Light Masterclass in Red Rock where you were wearing the blue and green flowing dress. Do you remember that one?
Yes.
So it's Samagra 1918 asked, how much did that dress cost?
That one was actually my prom dress. The blue and green one, the like really with the flowy stuff. Yeah, that one was actually my prom dress from prom. And actually, funny story. So I don't usually ask my parents for a lot of things, but I saw this dress in a magazine and it was available like a couple blocks away in our local prom dresses store. And it was
It's
like
a prom dress store. Okay.
three,
Yep.
yeah, it's like $400, and I was like, oh my god, that is way too much money. And I told my parents, I was like, it's too much. I even tried it on and everything, not knowing how much it was gonna be. And my mom, she loved it. My dad loved it, and they were like, you know what? It's prom. You don't really ask for much, so we'll just get it for you. And I was like, I swear, I will, like, make our money's worth off of this dress. And I have actually worn that dress to, I think, 3 proms. 3 proms? 2
Why have
proms?
you been to 3 proms?
Oh, I got asked when I was in college by a friend. He was like, "Hey, you want to go to prom?" I was like, "I'm a sophomore in college, but yeah, sure, I'll go to prom." And then, um, obviously, I've worn it for like so many photo shoots now. So, yeah, my parents are very happy with that. I did joke around. I was like, "I'm gonna get married in this dress," and then my mom was like, "You better not." I was like, "Okay, all right."
Here's some bleach. You can turn it white first.
Yeah.
Troy Riston, any advice with stance for someone who has had a few strokes and isn't that steady? So I don't know how, so in terms of stance, if that means that it's particularly an issue with stability of legs or overall. A long while ago, I did a video talking about how I stand to get longer exposures and be able to stay steady before we had IBIS. I think I made that one. So that probably is a useful one if you have a typically, you know, a normal amount of stability and you're trying to get a slower shutter would be the same as someone who is not as stable trying to get a bit of a faster shutter. So again, not to be dismissive, but check that out because I went through a bunch of different steps for you. But essentially it's slowing down, taking your time, and then if you have nothing to lean against, you can actually, so you have the 2 hands on the camera, one on the lens if it's a big lens, and then actually push the camera quite firmly up against your head. It may sound funny, but it gives you a 3rd point of contact and you're less likely to have that back and forward motion. The arms either side can stop the left and right, and then the, you know, pushing it firmly against your head gives you the 3rd point of contact. Of course, if you have the option, a monopod is a great choice. And especially with the longer lens, I'm stopped being so stubborn anymore, and I'm willing to take a monopod along for, you know, something, pretty much anything bigger than a 70 to 200. And it's just a fact, you know, some people, some people have a slight tremor, some people are steadier, some people aren't. So, you know, I would also recommend, if you are having issues with it, do consider something that has in-body image stabilization, so then all of your equipment then gets the benefit of that stabilization. Things like the Olympus cameras that everyone's so worried about, their stabilization is unbelievable. So, you know, and they're nice and small. So if you want something like that, then they would be a good option. James Harris, do you formally copyright all of your images? Not all, occasionally, but generally by asserting copyright as a creator, you then have copyright without having to go through the formal mechanism of actually registering individual images. Hi 101 blog, hi Troy.
Hi guys.
Bernard Tan, what do you think of rear lens fitted filters compared to traditional filters? Is there a particular lens that you're thinking of? On things like super telephotos, it just makes sense to have a drop-in filter, so then you aren't having a filter this big at the front of your lens. A lot of people though use filters as, I think, a false sense of security protection, which a rear one won't give you. Jamie Sanders, do you think people still want to buy a Canon 5D Mark 1 or 2? I can't say that I am people, but they're both as good as the day they were released. You can still make great images. I'm actually in the process right now. I've hinted at it a few times, so I'll just share a little bit more now. Going through the process of putting together a new website. Actually, now it's evolving into 2 separate new websites. And I'm going back through the images that I have here on my different NASs that go back to about 2009 or 2010. And still, some of my favorite shots that I've taken, whether they're travel or, you know, art nudes or portraits, whatever, were taken 8 to 10 years ago with things like crop cameras and Nikon D700 and Nikon D200. Yes, when I look at a brand new file, you know, a file from the A7R Mark IV or my D850, yes, I can zoom in further and I can do more with the file because there's more data there. But I was actually thinking about this one particular shot. I'll share it maybe on Friday if someone reminds me. I think Steph and I tried to recreate it. I took this shot of this woman for my first book, Private Bodies, and for those who've been watching a long time, you might recognize it from my description. It's basically someone curled on their side, shooting down, and you can see the hip, the side, and the arm, but it's so abstract you can barely tell that it's a human body, let alone which part, and there's no nudity. But I love that image. And I've tried retaking it with different models. The model had a very similar body type to Steph, and I think we tried shooting it in London and a few other places, and I've just never gotten the same result. Sometimes whatever camera you have with the light that just happens to be there and the model or the subject that you're shooting with at that moment, it can be really hard to recreate. So that went on a big tangent. But yes, I'm sure some people would buy a 5D 1 or 2. And if you don't find a person willing to buy it, try KEH camera. Segue.
Oh, plug.
Oh, that's a good one. Ben Farrow, what camera do you expect to be in the next field tested? So my difficulty in answering that is, I will do camera reviews soon and lens reviews soon. I'm still doing some, right? I did some compact ones recently. I'll still do that, but it's not like some big trademark that I need to protect. But I don't want to degrade field tested into just being around the house stuff. It's always been about taking some equipment out in the elements for weeks, really putting it through its paces, shooting it at night and in the morning and when I'm exhausted, and shooting for 12 hours in a day, because that's when you really notice issues that you won't notice taking headshots with Steph in a no pressure situation in a studio or just outside in the park. So I wouldn't do that unless I have a long detailed series of shoots or a trip planned. So I don't know what that's going to be. Sorry. I really hope that it becomes safe to travel soon, and as soon as it does, I'll make sure that I take along a camera worthy of it. So like people asking, am I going to do something on the Nikon D6? I would love to, but I do think a camera like that deserves a field tested, not just a couple of headshots in the park. And because I can't travel, that makes it difficult. Gokhan asks, what are your exact thoughts shortly about GFX 100? That's one that I did a full field tested video on. So if you search Matt Granger GFX 100, you'll see a half an hour long video I did in Bhutan, testing it out in the exact way that I just described. Carolyn has a question for you, Steph. Do you think you'll ever be able to talk Matt into letting dogs be a theme some week?
I don't think it's going to be a problem. I mean, he loves dogs just as much as I do. So
I think you guys have a short memory.
Yeah.
We have done dogs. We have done pets.
I know we have.
To do it again, we sure can, but it's good to have it be something inclusive as well. And it does become a struggle, but it's nice to have things that a topic that we maybe haven't done before. But yeah, it's by making the theme dogs, it actually would remove the bias of Steph getting excited about a dog entered into a general competition, and you would all have the same advantage. And the good thing about Steph and I, we're equal opportunity dog lovers. It doesn't need to be some tiny purebred, perfectly groomed thing for us to stop and awe and want to rub its tummy. So any dog will
It could be the ugliest looking dog, but if it's
There's
a dog,
no such thing.
it's automatically cute. I know there is no such thing. What am I talking about?
But I'm thinking I had a theme in mind for next week, but I will let you guys know.
Dogs. Oh.
We might, there you go. Caroline, you win. Next week's theme will be dogs. And then I'll make what I had in mind for the following week. That works fine. So, well done. You've twisted my arm successfully.
And the trick is, everyone's a winner.
What are you, Oprah now? You get a puppy, and you get a puppy.
I know so many people are getting puppies while in quarantine. It's crazy. Like, jeez. So cute though.
Thank you for sharing the GFX 100 video there, Yobo. Gokhan, you can see that in the chat now, so you can click through and see that. I think it was a really good video, and long, short, I think it's an insanely sophisticated and capable camera with the worst ergonomics probably that I've ever used and some really shoddy finishing on what is an amazing camera. If they spend another $200 on finishing it, I mean, it's just insane. I can't wait for some of that tech to trickle down into the rest of their system. I would almost, I mean, I won't, but I would almost buy it and the 110mm f2 lens just because I love that combo so much if it weren't a $12,500 splurge. So I will be expecting some huge white fluffy dogs from our regular contributor this next week. I hope I get that. But reminder to everyone else, the theme for this week is smoke, but please still think of it broadly. It could be just a car doing a burnout. It could be a shot that in a skyline has a chimney in it. It could be, having canned aerosol or someone cooking, whatever it is. It doesn't need to be all about smoke. As long as there's some of it in there, then I'm always open to them being used creatively. So take a look through your archive, and you don't need to go set a fire to enter this week's comp. You can submit one that you've formally previously. And yes, as Chris said, you could enter some smoked fish if you would like, or anything like that. That would be delicious. How are we doing time-wise? We are right on half an hour. So if we've got a couple of last questions, send them through. We'll choose a couple out. Otherwise, don't forget, I just checked in with KEH actually today, and they've got a bunch of bookings in, but there are still some slots. They have 2 different buyers dedicated for the 2 days for our community. And like I say, it's actually really cool I had my call with Brent, who's one of the 2 that you can. He's got like 20 or 30 years of experience. So if you are trying to sell this, he will know the 10 different things that can go wrong with them or that tend to wear out and check it with you. And it's just cool to know that for yourself anyway. So I don't want you to make an appointment just to kick tires and get a free tutorial, but if it's cool anyway.
That is good.
D-Lit, what's the shot that makes you cringe most often? I can't think of a shot, but I think Steph and I may be in agreement on this one. It was funny, we both had this, I don't mean to speak for you, Steph, correct me if I'm wrong, I won't mind, but opinion that we shared with each other, and it was like a moment of twinsies. For me, when you're shooting a female model, especially nude, but anyway, the one cliche that always makes me cringe is on the toilet indoors or on train tracks outdoors. They just so overdone, and I don't think I've ever seen one that had any kind of class to it.
Yeah, it's that and in unison of just like the general squatting pose. I don't get it. Like, I'll do it if a photographer is just like, hey, can you do this pose because I really want you to do it? I'm like, okay, fine. But it's not going to be my favorite image because it just doesn't make sense in any situation. Like, especially in heels, like...
That said, you do have a pretty mean power squat. When we're in a production, you can like hover. I mean, think of it as, some kind of an homage. But having said that, I generally agree, but there are some fashion shots and some outfits that I think look killer in the right kind of a squat. Obviously not like a nude shoot. It would be very hard to make that classy. But there was one shot we did of you dressed as Leilu with like one leg out, one knee up. That was basically squatting.
Yeah,
that was more crouching, but still.
Squat.
Well, tell me what you mean then. I'm not sure what you mean exactly.
It's just
side on or front on, or it doesn't make a difference?
I find a lot of times photographers take it from side on, and it's like
it's a booty shot.
It's a booty shot, and I get it. I understand, but there's other poses that you guys can kind of go towards that will accentuate the booty, but it looks like they're trying to take a dump on a sidewalk. Like, I'm sorry. I'm just being
Look, if that's what they're going
honest.
for, why you got to be a hater, Steph? Sometimes
I mean,
when you got to go,
you
just got to go.
Sure, fine. All the power to you, but it's just...
You're hilarious. If you guys
I've
didn't
seen
see
so many.
If you guys didn't see it, see what you think. I would suggest you check out, it was actually a KEH video. I say KEH doing this because I have this camera from KEH and I just mentioned them. But we did a used Holy Trinity video showing how you could get the whole kit for less than one current Trinity lens. And we did smoke. We did a ninja theme shoot with smoke, and we did a couple of Leilu shots. And there were actually, I think, 2 what I would call, I don't know if it's squatting or crouching shots, but one you were on the construction railing firing a gun, doing a hair flick with a backlight, and another was with that crazy construction.
Set of obliques, man. Whew.
Oh, the old obliques.
The whole like, ugh.
Yeah, they're rough. All right. This is. I always find this funny. This time we haven't really had a lull, but it's often it takes ages to get some questions, and then when I say okay, time to wrap, then we're just getting all these great questions in. But let's. I'm going to put a time limit on it because Steph and I both have a shit ton to do today, so we'll max it out at 10 minutes unless it dries up in terms of questions before that. Photorescent asked, I have a photo project to support research of a cancer cure. Do you have any project like this? I guess what you mean by that is any projects to help with charity or to help with, a good cause. In that case, yes. I don't know that I've done anything specifically for cancer. I know I've raised money for cancer charities. So Steph was a part of a kind of a charity, like a, what do you call it? It wasn't Make-A-Wish, but it was like a make your dreams come true type organization. What was it called?
Something like that. I forget. What was it
It was
called?
like they granted wishes, but it wasn't to terminally ill people. It was just to deserving people. So I helped out on that. I've done fundraisers recently for the
The
Australian
wish list.
fires. The wish list, that's it.
Yeah.
And I've done lots of different charitable projects. My first book that I made was just to raise money for some twins that conjoined twins that needed surgery. That's a lot more niche than cancer research, but I guess that's kind of what you were asking.
Oh yeah, and apologize to everybody for like the graphic description of the whole squatting thing. I'm sorry. That's just my opinion. Sorry guys.
Yep. Prashant is asking about cheap strobe lights. We had this conversation before you got to the room, my friend. If you search the channel for strobe or flash buying guide, I've done videos on that. So rather than suggesting a particular model of flash, that's a general buying guide. If you want a specific one, I'm currently using and loving the Nissan Di700s. They're a lot cheaper than most on-camera flashes, and they do have a really sophisticated wireless system if you want to build that out. Otherwise, you can use them on camera, or you can just use them as slaves as well. Anything else? I would love to see your smoke shots, so please submit them over at the webpage, mattgranger.com/live. And the following week, we already know the theme is going to be dogs, but please don't submit that yet. I am telling you now, if you submit that now, I won't get it, because basically on a Friday afternoon, I go through and download all the pictures that have been submitted for that week. Then the next night, that night, the new comp starts. So over the week, then the next 50 or 100 emails are all about smoke, and I download them. So if you put a dog at the moment, it'll get downloaded now, but then discarded because it doesn't fit the smoke theme. So please wait. I think that might just about do us. What do you think? Apparently Steph ruined the vibe of the show altogether with her
I
squat
am
talk.
so sorry, guys. I'm sorry. Oh, what about smoking dog? I mean, it still fits the theme of smoke, so
What's that?
I'll allow it.
That picture of the dog sitting around playing poker. I'm sure one of them was smoking.
Yeah.
There we go. All right. So thank you all for your questions. Someone saying, any thoughts on the EOS R5 versus the rumored Z6S? Haven't read the rumors, don't follow rumors. I'm not going to compare a camera that's been announced but not tested to a camera that's a rumor that doesn't exist. Sorry, I have no thoughts on it. Thank you all. Check out the KEH deal that's going on at the moment. Sign up if you're interested, 17th and 18th virtual buying event. Join us on Friday to look at your smoke-themed images and have a beer. That'll be at the normal time of 6 p.m. Eastern Daylight rather than this earlier time. And we will catch you soon. Thanks, Steph. Have a great week.
Yep.
See you all.
All right, cool. Bye, everyone.